Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2504 today. Well, today we're going to take you on a very cool adventure over in Europe. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah. We are going to have some fun today because I've got two returning guests here on the show who are just, as they say in their own voice, fresh off the boat. Back from a very fun adventure, Andy and Mercedes Lilienthal. Andy, Mercedes, welcome back to Cars Yeah. Do you have any gear? Well, I should say, actually, have you unpacked? Are you ready to release the clutch? But no clutch because of the car you were in. So are you back? And did you have some fun?
We are back, and no, we're not unpacked.
We're kind of unpacked. Don't look behind us because it's all on the floor and a bunch of piles.
That's okay.
But we're back. Physically, we're back.
Yeah, you're back. Well, it's good to have you back. And I wanted to have you guys back because the last time you were on the show, we talked about a wonderful adventure in a new vehicle. You can go back and watch that show. It was number 2462 back in January of this year. And Mercedes was on the show back in April 2021. Deep in the heart of COVID. Thank goodness we're all past that with show number 1793. But this one is a new adventure. You two just cannot seem to stay home. I'm guessing you have your bags always packed. Is that the way it is for you two?
For the most part, yeah. We have a tendency to have multiple go bags, if you will, or rally bags or camping or, yeah.
It's gotten to the point where I don't unpack a DOP kit. I keep a dedicated DOP kit. I don't unpack anything. It's just ready to go whenever we need to go.
Yeah, I used to travel a lot, and I did the same thing, and it made things very, very simple. In fact, I even created a hit list because I used to travel to Europe and Asia a lot for business. And so instead of having to re-guess everything, I would just have this little spreadsheet on my phone. And every trip I'd come back and I'd add something or delete something. I didn't need that many pairs of pants or shirts or whatever it might be. So there you go. Well, let me give you a little bit of a proper introduction to set the tone for what we're going to talk about today. Andy and Mercedes Lilienthal are a wife and husband team. They're journalists, they're PR and marketing consultants who just returned from competing with the Superlative Adventure Club in the 2024 Baltic Sea Circle, driving the new Volkswagen ID Buzz. This is kind of cool. They drove the 16-day, 7,500 kilometer, that's 4,771. Do I have that right?
Yes.
I think it's 4,660, but maybe my math is off.
Okay.
Your math is off,
Oh, okay.
says the navigator.
Ah.
What we ended up clocking personally was 4,771 miles on the dot. I don't know what the 10th or the 100th of it was, but there's a suggested route in this lovely route book here that is about a half of an inch thick. It's spiral bound that each team got. It's a suggested route. So teams could deviate if they wanted to, as long as they pretty much showed up at the finish line. So
it's a bit of a choose your own adventure affair. So, like Mercedes said, that they give you sort of rough outlook, what you can do. And it's not a bad idea to stay around Falkenberg, Sweden on the first night. And then as the rally progressed, we realized those really were just suggestions. And you could go as far as you wanted, but they generally stated you should do about 500 kilometers or 310 miles, I believe, a day to keep up with the rally's pace and finish within the allotted 16 days.
Oh, wow.
And I mean,
okay.
For us, there were 140 starting teams, and the more research we did and talking to the rally organizers, we very quickly found out that we were the only all-electric team. And we were also the only team that was not from the European Union or the surrounding area. So it was very interesting for us to say, all right, well, we know we need to get up a lot earlier than most everybody else, because every time we stop to charge, we will need to stop to, at least hit 80%, which will probably be dependent on where we are, maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes, depending on where we need to be. And then, or if we go up to 100%. So somebody else might need to just hit the petrol 10 minutes, maybe, where we might need an hour. So
yeah, well, we will get into the details of that because that's a big, I wouldn't say a detriment, but it's something you had to deal with.
Yeah.
I'll tell the listeners, this event is the northernmost rally in the world. It covers 9 countries around the Baltic Sea. Their journey included wild camping, and daily rally challenges are without the use of GPS. They could only use paper maps, old-fashioned paper maps. Thankfully, I would think maybe some of the young people wouldn't have a clue how to do that. They raised money for the Jessi Combs Foundation as a charity of choice. We're going to talk about that, of course. And you remember, as I said, these two were on last January when they did the 2024 Alcan 5000 rally, driving the new INEOS Grenadier. So we're going to be back and learn a lot more about this magnificent trip. But first, a word from our sponsors. Give them a little love, please, and we'll be right back. Buckle up. Today's vehicles are essentially computers on wheels, and it takes more than a wrench and oil to keep them humming. That's why Cars Yeah supports TechForce Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to driving tomorrow's workforce of skilled technicians forward. Techs keep our cars, trucks, airplanes, and fleets rolling. Yet there's a massive tech shortage because many young people don't know it's no longer a blue-collar job. Today, it's a new-collar career. It involves computers, technology, it's in high demand, you get paid really well, and you can live and work anywhere in the country. I know you're passionate about cars, trucks, and motorcycles, and you can help pass that passion on to the next generation of techs so our rides keep rolling down the road. Visit techforce.org today and learn how. For several years now, you've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine. I've been a subscriber since the start. Their talented and creative team brings you a spectacular publication and website that shares the automotive passion from a worldwide perspective. Linkage is about driving, restoring, collecting, and first-hand experience at collector car auctions and more. They bring you real-world values plus rational, experienced opinions on the current markets. They cover the automotive world and the people who share our passions. And Linkage Magazine has grown, mailing you 6 issues annually. Join me on this journey with Linkage. They're geared for the automotive life. You can subscribe at linkagemag.com. So there's a lot to unpack, nice pun here, as you get back from this trip, of what you did. And I want to start with the basics of this rally. You touched on a little bit during the intro there, Baltic Sea Circle, and you're driving the new Volkswagen ID Buzz. We're going to separate these two, but I want to first talk about the actual adventure itself, because I looked up their website and oh my gosh, you saw some of the most beautiful part of the planet in the world. And I was following you guys on social media. You're great to post things, and I was always giving you a little love or a little thanks or a little like, I should say, along the way. So tell me a little bit more about how you found out about this and what this adventure is all about.
So when we were prepping for the 2020, probably 2022, maybe even before that. Yeah, it was before that. I think it was after the 2020 Alcan 5000. I should go back and look who it was, but somebody put a link in our group for the Alcan 5000 to this other rally group in Europe called Superlative Adventure Club. And I clicked on it and I saw that they were about 6 or 8 different rallies throughout Europe. And I was like, whoa, like this is amazing. And I showed Mercedes. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, let's go. Bags are packed.
We got to do one of these.
So they did one. When we did the 2020 Alcan 5000 as our first long distance rally, and we did it the winter iteration. And it turns out the Superlative Adventure Club had a rally called the Baltic Sea Circle Rally, and they run it winter and summer, just like Alcan. But this one goes 1.7 degrees farther north than the Alcan 5000, which ends up being, I believe, 113 miles farther north than we went to Tuktoyaktuk in Northwest Territories.
And they're not affiliated. So these rally groups are not affiliated with each other. It's just geographically in North America, where we were in Tuk and the Arctic Ocean, you can't drive, unless you're on sea ice, you can't drive any further north.
Right.
And where the Superlative Adventure Group goes with Nordkap, or the North Cape as we know it here, that's the northernmost point in Europe that you can drive. So of course, Andy and I looked at each other and we're like, well, yeah,
we got to do this.
We got to do this rally.
Now, granted, I mean, this was an undertaking. It's not something like and I'm not trying to discount the Alcan 5000 because it's amazing, but this required traveling overseas, bringing our gear with us overseas, figuring out how we're going to get a vehicle, what vehicle we're going to do.
6 more days.
Right. Now,
like,
and I will say,
money.
Mercedes really wanted to do the winter version right out of the box. And I had to say, I think we should do the summer one first, just to get an idea how this is, because we're going to 9 different countries with 9 other languages, different currencies, different cultures.
8 countries that we've never been to, mind you.
So
wow.
I don't want to freeze to death on this the first time we do it.
Well,
So
plus there's the aspect of the EV vehicle, which sometimes in the cold creates a challenge.
Right.
So,
right. And we weren't the first people to do this event in an EV. It had been done about 10 to 12 times.
Okay.
Right. So basically, SAC for short, Superlative Adventure Club, or SAC, for their acronym, they in 2022 started allowing zero net carbon, or i.e. EVs, as part of this rally circuit. Basically, this is kind of a classic car or older car rally. So all their different rallies, they have different points groups. So either 10 years and older, there's like no points. 20 years and older, I think there's like 20 points. 30 years and older, there's like 30 points.
Oh, so there's vehicles that old on this thing.
Exactly.
That's cool.
There were some
yes.
Volkswagen Beetles, with under 70 horsepower.
Right. Those are
and 30 years and older.
Oh my gosh.
And as Andy was just saying, I was going to allude to, there are ones, I think they're called slow riders, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are 70 horsepower and under. And that's the final classification. And those, are those 10 points, I think?
You got an extra 10 points. And then, your vehicle had to be at least 10 years old. Or
older.
And then once you hit 20 years old, you got a extra point for every year past that.
Right.
So if you ran like this gentleman that we met, super guy, he had a
is it a 66?
It was a 60s Beetle, and it had under 70 horsepower. So he immediately started off with quite a bit of points because he
and a very slow vehicle.
Yes, and he completed it. He finished it, and it was great. Now the EVs also, they immediately got 10 points. Now I say they, but we were the only EV this year.
Right.
Well, let's talk a little bit. Well, let me back up in a minute. What were these? You mentioned this old VW. I can't imagine going that many miles in one of those. Oh my gosh, that would be loud and slow. But what were some of the other cool old vehicles, since we are car people here?
Well, so it really spanned the gamut. Yeah, it was everything from old, there was a guy with a 1982, I believe it was a Mercedes-Benz fire truck. A Feuerwehr. And there was there were a couple of Ladas.
Yeah.
From Russia.
I think one of the Ladas won.
One of the Ladas.
No, really?
Was
some really old Mercedes. Too.
And there was some old Mercedes. There was a whole fleet of VW vans.
Some old Volvos.
There was a bunch of old Volvos. There were some really small Peugeots.
Yeah.
It's
wow.
You name it, it was there.
Nothing like we could get over here, though.
I think the oldest vehicle was probably one of the Bugs in the 60s.
Wow.
So there were some very slow vehicles. There were some, faster vehicles. But, because one of the other rules of the rally, and most of the rules were pretty self-enforced, but one of the rules is you were to stay off of motorways. So they really want you to explore the back roads of Europe.
Much more fun.
Right.
The speed limits, though, especially like in Norway, were never higher than 80 kilometers an hour. So you'll never get it going faster than 50. So when we initially heard that you only needed to do 300 miles a day approximately, we thought, oh, that's easy.
Yeah.
We're like, piece of cake. We can sit back and eat bonbons. Actually, not really, but
not when you're going 40 miles an hour.
When you get on these roads that go between 60 and 80 kilometers an hour, and you're going over mountain passes, it takes forever.
Right.
Well, and staying off the whole motorways thing, in all of EU, they have this blue sign, right, that have the two, highways and then the overpass sign.
Yeah.
Like the Autobahn.
Like the Autobahn. So that's the sign that that is, basically indicates in the road book that that's what you're supposed to stay off of.
Okay.
And they have all these different rules and regulations that you're supposed to follow in the road book. And you have what are called 3 jokers. And that's basically 3 opportunities that if you wanted to go on the Autobahn or a motorway, you have up until 300 kilometers that you could use 1 joker for. Let's say if you're running behind or something like that.
Or you wanted to get ahead.
Which we wanted really to get to Helsinki, for instance. And we pushed really hard to get to Helsinki and spend a day in Helsinki. We used a joker for that. So we were trying to figure out, okay, what really does a motorway mean? Because the first few days we really struggled hard because we have to supply our own maps. They don't give you any maps. So living in the US, long story very short, Amazon and all these different websites, it's like, how can I find an update? How can I find any maps of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, for instance?
Much less updated.
Much less all of Scandinavia or Germany or updated ones. I couldn't find hardly anything, but what I ordered 2 different kinds of companies of every country just because. When I got them and I started analyzing them, I told Andy, I'm like, oh my God, they only show motorways.
Yeah.
These were not zoomed in.
These were not zoomed in very far at all.
Gosh.
So,
wow.
So I struggled a bit trying to figure out what consisted of a motorway. So is it 2 lanes going the same direction? Is it not? We obviously know an Autobahn's not. So the first few days, we found ourselves on lots of gravel roads with cows.
I think we saw more tractors than we saw other cars.
Wow.
So I think, it was kind of hilarious. It was a little frustrating, but it was a lot of hilarious moments because, we, the first couple days, they had live tracking. So as a navigator, I was able to hop on my smartphone and see where we were compared to the other teams. And it's not always perfect because it's based on satellite and it lagged a bit. A lot of times we started early, but then as we started charging, we charged, 2 to 4 times, mainly 3 times every day at least. We fell behind a lot, and then we were way behind a lot. So it was interesting.
I can't even imagine. This is a nice segue into what you were driving, and I want to learn a little bit more because over here we've been hearing about this VW retro bus that's coming, and it's been coming forever. I've given up. It's like they're never going to make it. It's just one of those teaser things. But you actually were in one. And you were in a European version. Was it the long wheelbase or shorter wheelbase?
It was a short wheelbase.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a short wheelbase. So how should I say this? Europe has had the vehicle since 2022. From 2022 through mid-2024, they offered a couple of different motor choices. So we actually had the lowest power version of it. It's a single motor, makes about 201 horsepower, has an 82 kilowatt battery. The range was about 236 or 263, I can't remember, miles, around 450 kilometers. So it was a short wheelbase version, and then they had included what they call a camping module from a company called Kukuk, and spelled Q-U-Q-U-Q.
I saw. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah. And so it's a
really slick system.
It's a box that has a stove, a refrigerator, 20 liters of water, a couple of wash basins, and then a bed. So we slept in it, cooked out of it, lived out of it. Now
you talked about charging though, because with that distance, it sounds like, well, why would you have to charge multiple times? But we all know if you've ever driven an EV, situations alter the amount of power, kind of like gasoline. You put your foot down too hard, you drive up a lot of hills, but EVs are different. So how did you deal with paying for, finding chargers? I mean, there's a lot of planning that's got to go into this.
It was incredible.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of planning. So we did a ton of research before we even set foot on German soil or overseas to figure out how we wanted to do this, how we wanted to strategize. Basically, what we wanted to do was do more quicker bumps for charging. So we knew we had reserves in case we got to a certain point and then all of a sudden the chargers weren't there, or they were broken, or there was some other issues, or we couldn't
a bunch of
connect
cars
them.
waiting for them already hooked up to them.
Exactly. or things like that, because that's all happened.
And we know that, between 10 and 80% is the fastest charging.
Right. So we know a lot of these points, but we knew that overseas, we knew that Scandinavia and Germany, but especially Scandinavia, was really good with having EVs. I mean, my gosh,
Norway.
Most of the whole entire, everybody that drives has an EV up there. It's literally incredible.
Wow.
When we got up there, it's like, it was, you heard when a car wasn't an EV. It was incredible.
Yeah.
But for us, we didn't know where we were, and we didn't know a lot of different parameters. So we were like, okay, let's we get up really early. Let's run it down to maybe 50, 40, let's say 30% or so. But, mind you, we had to use paper maps, but we had to use GPS for us to find the charging stations. So when I knew I was going to be close to a certain city, because of course we had to bank towards the cities, we had to always stay and deviate towards the cities, even though what the route book said.
That was because of our EV charging situation.
Of the EVs. So for instance, when we had to go through Poland, we went through the northern route, and then when everybody else still kissed the northern route to the Baltic Sea, we went way down south and we went to Berlin and then all the way back up to Hamburg to finish. Everybody else went, way far north, but there was hardly any like bigger cities. I'm like, well, I have to try to plan it that way. But that being said, is when we do you want to talk about the how? That was that was our strategy on figuring out when and how to charge, but how to pay was a whole nother thing. So you kind of headed up the research on
before we left, I tried to do as much research as I could about charging networks through the different countries, how to pay, et cetera, et cetera. And I kept reading online. There haven't been a whole lot of people that have done this extensive of a trip in EVs. And so the information I found was that you can't just pull up to a charger and swipe your credit card like you can in the US.
Now, what? Yeah, that's because you were in 9 countries. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, you think you'd just be able to use a credit card like you can anywhere in the world almost.
No. And so it turns out that it's this patchwork of independent operators, and each one of them uses a proprietary app or charging like a card.
Oh my gosh.
I would say 98% of them didn't have a way to pay with credit card. And again, I thought, okay, so when I was doing this research, I tried to download the apps here in the US on my phone, and it would say app unavailable in your region. So we couldn't download them. So thankfully our nephew Paul, who lives in Germany, said, I will lend you one of my old iPhones. And so we thought, okay, great. So he loaded up a list of all of the apps that I came up with
we were going to download
that said they should work in these countries. And okay, great. So our first charge in Germany, great. Our second charge was in Denmark, and it worked. I thought, okay, I'm feeling a little bit better.
We're getting happier.
To be honest, I was pretty hesitant about the whole idea of doing this in an EV. And then our first charge went smoothly. Thought, great. Our second charge was in Helsingborg, Sweden, and it was at a Circle K. So like Circle K is a big deal in Scandinavia. We pull up and none of our apps work. None of our cards work. And there was a moment where my heart sank a little bit, and I thought, uh-oh, now what?
Yeah.
Well, there was a QR code on the charger to download the app. And I thought, I'm just going to try my own phone, just out of curiosity, because Germany wouldn't let me download apps. US wouldn't let me download the apps. Lo and behold, the Circle K in Sweden let me download the app called Alcan.
On his own phone in the US.
Wow.
So I added my credit card information. We started charging. Great. So long story short, we ended up downloading 16 total apps.
Oh my gosh.
On the trip, 13 of which we used.
13 we used. A couple of them didn't work. We tried a few more and we couldn't get them to work because they forced you to say, what is your Estonian phone number? What is your Polish phone number? Or things like that. But this is so complex for us to even understand. And we lived through it all. Probably a 4 to 5 page long Excel document of all of these different charging apps that should have worked in all 9 countries before we even set foot there. And we said, okay, LD was one of them. Electromaps was more of an aggregator. Shell Recharge was another one. What was the other one? EMBW. Those are the 4 ones that we ordered charging cards.
And
for
they should have worked. And they
worked.
may work in some of the towns that we maybe didn't go through.
Right. And a lot of them are kind of a conglomeration with some of the other companies. So it's like they're all kind of connected. You don't know who's who.
You'd pull up to a Recharge branded charger, but you could use the ENBW app there. But you'd pull up to an Ionity charger, and you could only use the Ionity app. That's probably not true, but it was an absolute mess.
Well, it was kind of.
We made it work, but
it was one of those where you pulled out all the. We got to the point where you'd pull out all the charging cards first, and we'd be like, "All right, Andy, let's see which one works." This, boop, nope.
Every app, nope.
See,
the app, boop, boop,
you
boop, nope.
You touch on one of the couple things that EVs are challenged with, you say here in the US, is that tether, they say, the tether of having to charge. And you get outside of California, let's say, and start moving across our country, and you start running into some of these issues because there aren't as many, all of this stuff. So, I mean, my hat's off to you two for your boldness of going on these adventures. And I've got to have the listeners go back and listen to when I talked to you about the other rally you went on, because that one, again, had its own challenges weather-wise. So I think now you're so happy you did not do this in the winter, because that would, that would have added another complexity to this whole thing. Again, my hat's off to you for doing this, because the anxiety level on top of a rally, which you've got time, distance type stuff to deal with, you two are crazy.
Yes.
Well, if I may,
certifiably so.
If I may. This one didn't have the time, speed, distance element to it. This was a completely different rally.
Okay.
Yes. So this was different in the fact where it wasn't what is normally called a TSD, or a time, speed, distance rally that we are normally used to doing. So a TSD rally, for those of in the audience that may not be familiar with it, is a precision-based or an accuracy rally, whereas you have to be perfectly en route, on time, with what the rally master has you do. So let's say they say your car number 2, you have to be, the rally starts at 8:00. So you're out at 8:02, right? Every car's out at a minute out in each interval. You have to go 27 miles an hour per 0.28 kilometer, or I'm sorry, miles here. Let's just go miles because we're back in the U.S. Sorry, everything's still a little bit fluid because we've been almost 5 weeks over there. So 0.28 miles. Turn right on Smith Street, increase speed to like 57 miles per hour, then go, 1.92, da-da-da-da-da.
Alcan 5000's like that. This was not.
Yes. This was if you want to go here and see this church, you could go and here's the background of this church.
Yeah,
and if you
a little
really
bit simpler.
And if you wanted to go to the Norway's oldest brewery and have a beer, go up to, was it Tromsø?
Tromsø, yeah. Otherwise, we'll see you in Hamburg in 16 days.
Yeah. Okay. Well, see, so you didn't want things to be easy, so you added the EV complexity.
What was really strange for us, or at least for me, is I'm so used to doing time, speed, distance, accuracy rallies. This was such a challenge because I don't want to say I'm not used to having fun, because I totally am. But it was like what? Wait, where's the turn by turn directions?
Right.
What?
So the other thing about, like, when we would do the Alcan 5000 rally, it was, you will be spending the night in Fort Nelson at this hotel.
Yes.
Next night you will be spending the night in Whitehorse at this hotel. On this one,
you might be at the brewery all day and all night.
You can camp. You can get a hotel. You could stay in a hostel. You could stay with friends and family. Whatever you want to do. We'll see you in Hamburg in 16 days.
There you go. Okay.
So we had to find where we were going to sleep for the night. Luckily, especially like Norway, Sweden, Finland, a lot of the Nordic countries have what they call right to roam, and you can pretty much camp wherever you want to.
Oh,
and
cool.
And what was amazing is the ID Buzz had so many wonderful qualities about it. We've talked a lot about the charging and about the rally and all that stuff. We haven't had a chance to talk.
No, I'm glad you were going down this path because I wanted to hear it. Like, what was the driving experience like? I mean, obviously very different than a Grenadier.
Yes, yeah. There's so much to talk about the Buzz, and we haven't even touched on that yet. So, I just wanted to talk a bit about the livability aspect of it, and the van life capability of it, and just sleeping and using it as with the camper van part of it, because it has so much going for it from that perspective, especially with the Kukuk camper setup. The fold out bed was super comfortable.
Big thick mattress.
Yeah, big thick mattress, and it has cubbies everywhere. It has little areas for you to put and stash stuff. And
like in the back, for instance, where we would have our feet, there on the side towards the back windows, there are slots and cubbies and stuff for you to put your keys and your wallet and stuff like that. There was like clearly, the company that had that made Vanagons and Eurovans and all that stuff. They know how to build a camper van, or they know they know people are going to sleep in these.
One little slot was perfect for eyeglasses, and another one was perfect for putting a bottle of water.
Yeah.
And then they had a USB-C outlet. They had USB-C outlets everywhere.
I believe 7 of them.
I think 7 of them, although they are not powered on all the time.
There was a single 12 volt like cigarette outlet style in the back, and that was on full time, which was great because we had a small refrigerator plugged in, so it kept our food and drinks cold.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
I would love to, the outlets on, the little device, so we could power devices on, or keep them powered.
Right. Yeah.
Or power them up overnight if we wanted to. So we just used our battery packs.
When will this vehicle be available in the U.S.? Are we going to ever see one here?
Yes, they've confirmed with us, but they're saying that we should be able to see the more powerful long wheelbase later on this year, 2024.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay. Well, I think it's going to appeal to a lot of probably older boomers like me that love the idea of the multi-window buses back from the day. I will say that I had a friend with one, and we drove it from San Diego to Mammoth Mountain, which is normally a 7.5, 8-hour drive in a nice car. In that thing, I think it took us 12 and a half, 13 hours.
Yeah.
And when we got there, we couldn't hear anything because it was like being in a tin can with the revs, Oh, yeah. When I got there, I said, I'm going to go back home with somebody else. I'm not going back with you. This is terrible. But, so great car, great fun. Camping, like you said, the fact that you had to use maps, which is kind of a fun, novel thing. You hand a map to a lot of people these days, and they look at you like, what do I do with this? I don't know. I wanted to talk about, you raised some money because part of this was a charity thing, which I think was very nice of them to add. And Jessi Combs, who was a guest of mine back when we still had her with us, of course, we lost her in the horrible accident. You used that as your charity. Can you talk a little bit about why and about that charity?
Yeah, so the Jessi Combs Foundation is near and dear to us because of everything that Jessi Combs stood for.
I used to work with her at Warren because she was, when I worked at Warren Industries, she was our spokesperson.
Okay.
And so I had the great fortune to be able to
really get to know her.
Get to know her, spend some time with her. I remember one time I had to bring her to the airport in Grand Junction, Colorado, and we had a big layover. And she said, "Let's go get lunch and go walk around." I said, "Great." So we had lunch and we went and walked around. I remember going into a shop. It was like an outdoor store, and we walked in, and she was kind of like looking at some clothes. I was kind of looking at stuff, and this employee came over and said, "Is that Jessi Combs?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Isn't she on TV?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, wow." So, but she was an incredible person.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and through Andy working at Warren, that's how I got to meet Jessi. And not only did I document her when I was a journalist and photographer, which I still am, whenever it was kind of our off hours, right? And we got done with either SEMA or trail rides or whatever it may be, I put my camera down and I got to know her for her because I didn't want to always just have my camera shoved in her face or whatnot. And I just, I remember just belly laughing at silly jokes and whatever. And just, I loved her spirit.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say,
and what she did for women and young girls and people of all ages, men, women, whoever, however you identify, everybody. And what the foundation is doing to help carry her spirit on is just, and I'm not going to get emotional.
I know you got to think like you're Jessi,
Yeah,
always positive.
It is. It's such an amazing thing. And what they're doing is to help put other women through their trade schools by scholarships. And so I talked to Andy and I said, I know this by, because this is a charity rally. I said, we can either support their charity, which is Movember, which is very obviously very good charity.
The whole thing, by the way, is you were asked to raise at least €500 for the rally.
So either supporting their charity, which is Movember, or a charity of your choice. And so I talked to Andy about it, and then we decided collectively that the Jessi Combs Foundation just really fit, for the automotive perspective, and then also just, helping women get into the automotive trades and in the ancillary fields. And so we, within 8 hours or less than 8 hours, we already had succeeded our goal. And we are so proud to say we raised well over $3,000.
Yeah. Congratulations.
It's amazing.
I had to laugh when we showed up for check-in to the rally. They said, "What's your charity?" And I told them, and they said, "How much have you raised?" And I said, at the time, I think it was $3,000.
It's just over
I said $3,000, and the guy looked at me and went, "Holy S!" And I was like, I took that as a humble compliment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's wonderful. I'll put a link to the Jessi Combs Foundation for you listeners that don't know about it. And you can go there and donate and help. Also, you can go back and listen to her show here on the Cars Yeah website or any mobile podcast app. Yeah, she was just wonderful. I got to spend a day with her in Orange County. I was an MC on a stage full of famous car people, and I got to interview all these different people. And she was one of the people that I got to interview. And I'd already had her on my show, so I kind of felt like I knew her. But to get to spend a day with her and see her interact with people, she just had a spirit that was just, absolutely fantastic. What would you say was, well, maybe you've already talked about it. I was going to ask you about the biggest challenge of this trip. Was it the map issue, or was it the charging issue, or was there something else?
I think that the charging issue was probably the biggest challenge, but multifaceted. Finding chargers, trying to get them to work. Like, finding the chargers wasn't the hard part. It was getting them to work and all the apps. And for example, when we were in Riga, Latvia, which is a town bigger than 500,000 people, we figured that'd be an easy place to find charging. We drove over 46 kilometers just around Riga to find a charger that would work.
Oh, gosh.
So the Baltic nations were harder for charging than the Nordic nations. But it was the charging thing overall, just finding them, getting them to work, downloading the apps, making sure they worked, etc.
But I think the biggest thing to make a distinguishment here is that is not an issue with the Buzz.
No, it's not a Buzz problem.
At all. It's an infrastructure issue.
Yeah.
It is solely the state of the European Union and Scandinavia and the Eastern Baltic nations and how they have how you pay for charging. We were able to find the chargers. That wasn't the issue. It was how to pay for them. But when we got to actually plugging it in, the Volkswagen it was super easy. It was great.
Yeah, it was not a VW problem at all.
No, it was great. The interface was super easy. The infotainment system lets you really slide a little dial, not a dial, but slide the menu. It had a little slider to say, do you want to go to 80%, 100%, whatever. It showed you very clearly as to how much time you had left. Everything was super easy.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just the whole charging thing as a whole. Not the vehicle, but just the infrastructure. I will say that we ran into far fewer broken chargers than we have in the U.S. And there has Norway
was surprisingly bad.
Norway was surprisingly good.
No. As far as chargers,
here we go.
There were so many of them in Norway comparatively, but
broken chargers.
There have been laws or legislation passed now in the EU nations, as I understand, that I believe by 2027 chargers have to have a way to pay for use a credit card or debit card.
And then I think the older ones have to be retrofitted back as well.
Right.
For direct credit cards.
I know moving forward, it's going to be existing ones first. So, but the other thing too, I would say that was a challenge was it was simply longer days than we anticipated. Again, I had alluded to earlier that 300 miles a day, that's nothing. But when you combine the slow speeds, the terrain, charging, just stopping to use the bathroom and eating and stuff like that, the first few days, I honestly was a little bit like, what did we get ourselves into here? Like 16-hour days, 3 days in a row? This is, I can't do this. I need more than 4 hours of sleep a night.
Right. Yeah.
But when you find yourselves randomly on another gravel road, because we found ourselves on many gravel roads, and then all of a sudden, Andy's like, is that a sign for entering Poland?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm like, stop. And then we look, and then I was like, oh crap, that is the sign for entering Poland. And we're entering Poland.
On some back road.
On a gravel road. Yeah. And we're like, no, we're not in Russia.
I guess we're in Poland.
But we're in Poland. I mean, that memory will stick with us forever.
I think one of the other things too that we keep talking about, like we got an Airbnb in Riga, Latvia, because we wanted to have a night in Riga and get a good meal and all that stuff. So
a shower.
And a shower, which didn't happen because Riga was out of hot water that day.
Oh,
anyway,
quite
seriously.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I said, we're sitting in Riga with this brew pub kind of thing, and it had this convertible ceiling. It opened up to these spires from these churches and whatnot. And we're sitting there having a beer and having food, this great food. And I said, just think, like 20 years from now, we're going to be like, do you remember that time we did a rally and we ended up in Riga, Latvia? Like, how did that happen? And I think for me, it's those kind of experiences that make the endurance rallies so special and so incredible, because these are places you may never find yourself again. And here we are enjoying great food in Riga, Latvia, of all places. Like, wow, like I this is not somewhere I thought I'd find myself.
I had a weird experience like that in 2006. I was in a new Porsche driving through Europe and we were trying to be on all these back roads, and we ended up driving into Switzerland in a place we shouldn't have driven into Switzerland. And all of a sudden, these two motorcycle guys pull over and walk up with machine guns and go, what are you doing? And why did you, we'd gone down our little tiny road and we should have gone through the check station, This was way before EU even. So going into another country was a big deal. So yeah, you look back on these experiences, and that's what you guys, the joy of this. And it kind of leads me to the next question is, what's the next great adventure?
Boy.
There are...
Oh, yeah, no, I know.
There are some things on the horizon that we're super excited about that we cannot share.
Not yet.
But we are on tour with Subaru of America and Subaru Motorsports this year again. So we are doing a couple of their Subi Fest events with our 2022 Alcan 5000 Rally Outback Wilderness. And so we will be doing California. That will be
next weekend.
Yeah, Subi Fest event next weekend. Yeah, so we'll be on a plane again. And then
I've got a media event after that. And then we've got another Subi Fest event, Boxer Fest in York, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And then, we do have
August, I think.
We haven't made any, how do I say this, solid plans yet. But, Alcan 5000 2025 is a summer event that's going to come up. So that is definitely on our brains.
We don't have a vehicle manufacturer yet, but stay tuned because you never know with us. Who knows?
Yeah.
We're both planning on going to SEMA, so that will be in early November. Other than that,
it's just another boring year for the Lilienthals.
Somebody recently asked us at a show, do you guys actually have a house? And we're like, we do.
Yeah.
We do. It's a good place to
the goldfish, though, they're dead. They died a long time ago. So
poor plants.
Actually, this is the first year I haven't even had a chance to put out our outdoor furniture, like our
Why bother? Why bother? Well, you two, before I let you go today, and I can't thank you enough for coming back and sharing this adventure. I think we could talk for hours about an adventure like this. What type of advice would you offer to people that listen to these and go, I could never do that. That sounds too scary or too crazy or what kind of advice would you give somebody so the people get off the Autobahns, get off the freeways and go into the backcountry and really experience a country, or my goodness, just do it here in the United States. There's so much to see. What would you advise?
If I may start.
Yeah, go for it.
We just started in 2018 by just doing a local road rally in our hometown. Well, not hometown, but like our town where we live in.
$20 entry fee.
Yeah, $20 entry fee. And we just did a half-day road rally, a time-speed distance road rally. And we fell in love with it. We're like, wow, you get to see parts of the countryside that we loved. You get to meet like-minded car people and do something that's cool. We love cars. Wow, what's this all about? And then we kind of did another one and then another one. And we just fell in love with this little group and this and that. And it snowballed to infinity and beyond. So you don't have to have any fancy car. You don't have to have any fancy anything. You don't have to have a huge amount of budget, but just have the will of trying something and, just put yourself out there a little bit. It's exciting. It's different and just try it. You never know if you're going to love it. And if not, you're in the safety of your own home and go back to it if you don't like it.
It's like my father used to tell me as a kid, when you're like a little picky eater and you don't know if it's going to be good. My father would say, if you don't try it, how are you going to know you like it or not?
Right.
And it's a little bit like that. Get off the highway. Take a back road. Take a detour. Don't be afraid to try something new. I know it's out of your comfort zone, but
right.
Her sister has a great postcard in her kitchen in Germany, and it says, "But what if I fall?" And it says, "But dear, what happens if you happen to fly?" And it's like, yeah, you might fall on your face, but you also might find something that is incredible and amazing. So step out of those comfort zones, try something new. There's a whole group of people out there doing all kinds of this kind of stuff. You're never going to really be alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never know unless you try, and you can try at small levels like us. We just tried with a little tiny local rally, and we're still part of that local rally, Cascade Sports Car Club, excuse me. Say that 5 times in a row, here in Portland, Oregon. And we love them and we're members. We've been members since 2018 and we try to do as many rallies as we can once a month. Yep. And they're great.
There's all kinds of local groups. So look on Google and all that.
Yeah.
How can people learn more about you and this great adventure?
Yeah. So you'll be able to follow us on social media. We are Crankshaft Culture. And we have, of course, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, all that stuff, as well as crankshaftculture.com, which I'm in the middle of updating now.
And we also have our PR and marketing business, which is Crankshaft Consulting.
There you go. Absolutely. Folks, you two are just knocking it out of the ballpark. I don't know how to keep up with you two, but you make it fun.
As do we.
Yeah. I don't know how we keep up with ourselves.
Sometimes you just got to do it, right? You got to just fall a few times before you can fly. So I'm so happy you took a little break from your adventure here and joined me again. Have fun on the next one until you and I talk again. As I always say, I'll see you two definitely down the road.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Are you ready to take charge of your financial future? Then let me introduce you to Capitalize Your Finances. It's an online course designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools for mastering your money. This course will help you lay out the ins and outs of budgeting, the importance of emergency funds, investing strategies, and how to plan for a secure retirement. All this presented by financial planner Chris Paniotu. Chris has developed this course to help you effectively navigate your world of finance with confidence. Stop stressing about money and start taking control. Enroll in Capitalize Your Finance online course today and pave your way to financial success. To learn more, go to capitalizepodcast.com/courses, or better yet, go to the Cars Yeah website, show notes page for today's show, and click on the link under Capitalize Your Finances. You'll be glad you did. Do it today.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.